This is the story of a little town in Utah that vanished overnight. Thistle was established in 1878 by Mormon settlers from Nauvoo, Illinois, but ranchers and farmers have used the land of Thistle Valley for over 125 years. Why was this town called Thistle? Because of the Canada thistles that covered the valley. In 1890, a branch line of the railroad was built. It started there in Thistle and connected to the Sanpete Valley Railroad and on to the loading ramps at Marysville. Thistle quickly became the typical railroad town. There were railroad yards, loading ramps, water towers, stores, a school, homes, and of course, a church. It is Utah after all. Thistle even had a saloon and a pool hall. At its peak, around 1917, Thistle had about 600 residents. The railroad system in Thistle was primarily for servicing trains for the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad. In 1913, a 5-stall roundhouse was built to prepare locomotives and helper locomotives for the long, steep pull up Soldier Summit. Just like many other railroad towns, Thistle fell victim to the modernization of the railroad industry with the introduction of diesel locomotives. Residents began to move away, empty buildings were torn down, and the town shriveled up. Only a few residents remained. In the spring of 1983, Utah was hit by massive floods from the melting snow after a heavy winter. In April of 1983, the mountain alongside US 6 started moving 5 inches an hour. Yes, that's right, the mountain. On April 17th, the last 22 families living in Thistle were evacuated from their homes. Spanish Fork River was dammed up from the sliding mud, specifically a complex earth flow. A complex earth flow is a downslope, vicious flow of materials that have been saturated with water. It moves under the pull of gravity. Gravity is a bitch. The materials that are susceptible to earth flows are clay, sand, silt, and fine-grained pyroclastic material. Pyroclastic material are sedimentary clastic rocks, or fragments of rocks, composed primarily of volcanic materials. When the ground materials become saturated with enough water, they will start to flow, whether it's barely noticeable or rapidly moving. The higher the water content, the faster the flow will be. This caused the water to back up behind it. The backed up water reached the rooftops, causing Thistle to almost disappear. The backed up flooding caused a lake, named Lake Thistle by the work crews. Eventually, the water subsided, but the entire mountain had moved and was continuing to move at a rate of 1 to 2 feet per hour. The federal and state government have said this was the costliest landslide in U.S. history. The landslide resulted in the first presidentially declared disaster area in Utah. The Thistle mudslide ended up costing the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad and the state of Utah over $200 million. Luckily, no one was killed in the mudslide. Everyone was evacuated safely. Eventually, the highway was rebuilt, so was the road through Thistle, but instead of driving through the town, the road is now built at the new level, the level of the rooftops. If this wasn't enough, in August 2018, a lightning storm caused a large fire that burned through the canyon. More than 30,000 acres of land were destroyed, including many of the remaining structures in Thistle.